Recorded Books is pleased to present the Modern Scholar series, where great professors teach you. My name is Simon Prebble, and I'll be your host. Today, we begin a course entitled Heaven or Heresy, A History of the Inquisition. Your professor is Thomas F. Madden, Professor of Medieval History and Chair of the Department of History at St. Louis University. A recognized expert on the Crusades, he has appeared in forums such as National Public Radio and the New York Times. Professor Madden is the author of the New Concise History of the Crusades. He is the editor of Crusades, the Illustrated History, and the Crusades, Essential Readings. Among his published journal articles are The Enduring Myths of the Fourth Crusade, Father of the Bride, Fathers, Daughters, and Dowries in Late Medieval and Early Renaissance Venice, and The Fires of the Fourth Crusade in Constantinople, 1203 to 1204, a damage assessment. A mention of the Inquisition today brings shudders of horror to most people, but while it was active, the medieval Inquisition was sometimes remarked for its lenience, and its members were often considered just another institution of the Church. Our contemporary understanding of the Inquisition is coloured by our distance in time from the actual events, and by the radical changes in our understanding of the world that have come about since the Middle Ages. Yet the Inquisition, in many ways, represents a moment when the medieval world began to emerge into a new period of order and administration. To understand the world that came after it, a world that sometimes seems to have emerged in response to it, we must first comprehend the actual facts of the Inquisition, and what made it such a remarkable time in the history of the West. For more information on this course, please visit its webpage at www.modernscholar.com, where you'll have access to links to related sites, a seminar room to share your thoughts with other students, and, yes, of course, a final exam. And now we begin Heaven or Heresy, A History of the Inquisition, Lecture 1, The Organization of the Catholic Church. And now, Professor Madden.
Welcome to the course. In this course, we're going to look at the history of an institution that most people have heard of, but I would say that also most people know very little about, and that is the Inquisition. Nowadays, if you are accused of being part of an Inquisition, that is generally a bad thing. However, the word itself is simply from the Latin to inquire, and that's actually what the Inquisitions were. They were inquiries, or perhaps from a legal perspective, more of what we would call today an inquest. But for some reason, today one can refer to an inquest, and it's a perfectly neutral term. However, that is not at all the same with the term Inquisition. And why that is something that we will deal with in this course. In order to understand the Inquisition, however, we need to understand what are the factors and the environment that led to it. And that means that we're going to have some basic understanding of the organization of the Catholic Church, in particular its organization as we go into the Middle Ages. The Inquisition is a product of the Middle Ages, and so we need to understand how the church was organized if we're going to understand what the position of the Inquisition is within that church. And that will be the main subject of this lecture. However, there are a few other components that we will need to have in place before we actually start tackling the Inquisition. For example, it would be good to know something about heresy and orthodoxy and how those are defined and treated by the Catholic.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.